Why Taiwan is good at semiconductors. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I'm your host, and today we're going to talk about something that affects every single one of us, even though most people don't realize it. Have you ever wondered what makes your smartphone work? Or your laptop? Or even your car's computer system? The answer is semiconductors. These tiny electronic components are like the brain of modern technology. And here's something interesting. A small island called Taiwan makes most of the world's most advanced semiconductors. But wait, you might be thinking, Taiwan is such a small place. How did it become so important in the tech world? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into this fascinating story. What are semiconductors anyway? Before we talk about Taiwan, let's make sure we understand what semiconductors actually are. Don't worry, I'll keep this simple. Think of semiconductors as tiny switches. They can turn electricity on or off very quickly. When you combine millions or even billions of these tiny switches on a single chip, you get a computer processor. This processor can think, calculate, and make decisions. These chips are everywhere. They're in your phone, your computer, your car, your washing machine, and even your refrigerator. Without semiconductors, our modern world would simply stop working. Now, making these chips is incredibly difficult. It's like trying to build a city where each building is smaller than a virus. You need perfect conditions, amazing technology, and years of experience. This is where Taiwan comes in. Taiwan's semiconductor journey begins. Taiwan didn't start as a tech powerhouse. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, it was mainly known for making simple products like toys and clothes. But the government had a vision. They wanted to move beyond basic manufacturing and create something more valuable. In 1974, Taiwan made a smart decision. They invited an American engineer named Morris Chang to help them build a semiconductor industry. Morris Chang had worked for big American companies like Texas Instruments. He knew how to make chips, and he had big dreams for Taiwan. But here's what made Taiwan different from other countries trying to do the same thing. Instead of trying to compete with big American companies like Intel, Taiwan chose a different path. They decided to focus on manufacturing chips that other companies designed. This might sound boring, but it was actually brilliant. Let me explain why. The contract manufacturing revolution. Most people think that the company that designs a chip is the same company that makes it. But that's not always true. Many companies are great at designing chips but don't want to spend billions of dollars building factories. Taiwan saw this opportunity and said, "We'll build the factories. We'll make your chips for you." This business model is called contract manufacturing or foundry services. Morris Chang started a company called TSMC in 1987. TSMC stands for Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. The idea was simple but revolutionary. TSMC would make chips for anyone who needed them, as long as they paid for the service. This was like opening a restaurant that would cook any recipe you brought them, instead of only serving their own menu. Suddenly, small companies could design amazing chips without building their own expensive kitchens. Why this strategy worked so well? Taiwan's contract manufacturing strategy succeeded for several reasons. Let's break them down. First, it was much cheaper for companies to use Taiwan services than to build their own factories. Building a modern semiconductor factory costs about $20 billion today. That's more money than most companies want to spend. Second, Taiwan could serve many different customers. While a company like Intel only makes chips for their own products, TSMC could make chips for Apple, NVIDIA, AMD, and hundreds of other companies. This meant they could keep their factories busy all the time. Third, because TSMC worked with so many different companies, they learned from each project. Every new customer taught them something new about making chips better and faster. The perfect storm of advantages. But contract manufacturing was just the beginning. Taiwan had several other advantages that helped them dominate the semiconductor industry. Let's start with location. Taiwan sits right in the middle of East Asia, close to major markets like China, Japan, and South Korea. This made it easy to ship products to customers quickly. Taiwan also had something many other countries lacked: a strong education system focused on engineering and science. The government invested heavily in universities and technical schools. They created a generation of young people who were excellent at math, science, and engineering. But education alone wasn't enough. Taiwan also created a culture that valued hard work and attention to detail. In the semiconductor industry, one tiny mistake can ruin an entire batch of chips worth millions of dollars. Taiwan's workers developed a reputation for being extremely careful and precise. Government support makes the difference. Here's something that many people don't realize. Taiwan's government played a huge role in building the semiconductor industry. They didn't just let companies figure everything out on their own. The government created special science parks where tech companies could build their factories. These parks had everything companies needed: reliable electricity, clean water, good transportation, and even housing for workers. They also provided tax breaks and other financial incentives to encourage companies to invest in Taiwan. But most importantly, the government invested in research and development. They built institutes where engineers could work on new technologies and share their knowledge with companies. This government support was crucial in the early days when Taiwan was competing with countries like the United States and Japan that had much more experience. The talent pipeline. One of Taiwan's biggest advantages has been its ability to attract and develop talent. The island has several world-class universities that specialize in engineering and computer science. These schools produce thousands of skilled engineers every year. But Taiwan also did something smart. They encouraged their best students to study abroad, especially in the United States. Many Taiwanese engineers got advanced degrees from top American universities and worked for leading tech companies. Then, as Taiwan's semiconductor industry grew stronger, many of these talented people decided to return home. They brought back not just their skills, but also their connections and knowledge of the latest technologies. This created a positive cycle. As more talented people came back to Taiwan, the industry became stronger. As the industry became stronger, it attracted even more talent. The supply chain ecosystem. Taiwan didn't just focus on making chips. They built an entire ecosystem of companies that support the semiconductor industry. Think of it like a neighborhood where every store serves the same community. In Taiwan, you have companies that make the machines for producing chips, companies that design chips, companies that test chips, and companies that package chips for shipping. This ecosystem means that when a company wants to make a new chip, they can find everything they need in Taiwan. They don't have to ship materials and components from different countries around the world. This saves time and money. It also means that when new technologies are developed, they spread quickly through the entire ecosystem. If one company figures out how to make chips faster or cheaper, other companies in Taiwan can quickly learn and adopt these improvements. Continuous innovation and investment. Taiwan's semiconductor companies never stopped investing in new technology. They understood that in the tech world, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. Every year, these companies spend enormous amounts of money on research and development. TSMC, for example, spends about 8% of its revenue on research and development. That's billions of dollars every year. They also continuously upgrade their factories. The technology for making chips improves constantly, and companies need to buy new equipment to stay competitive. Taiwan's companies have been willing to make these expensive investments year after year. This commitment to innovation has allowed Taiwan to stay ahead of competitors. Today, TSMC can make chips that are smaller and more powerful than what most other companies can produce. The network effect. As Taiwan's semiconductor industry grew, it created what economists call a network effect. The more companies that came to Taiwan, the more attractive Taiwan became for other companies. Here's how it works. When a chip company sets up operations in Taiwan, they need suppliers, customers, and partners. This creates opportunities for other companies. As more companies come, the network becomes stronger and more valuable. Today, Taiwan has such a strong network that it's very difficult for other countries to compete. If you want to make the most advanced chips in the world, you almost have to work with Taiwan. Challenges and risks. Of course, being so successful also creates challenges. Today, Taiwan makes about 60% of the world's semiconductors and over 90% of the most advanced chips. This makes the whole world dependent on Taiwan. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when Taiwan's factories had to slow down, it caused chip shortages around the world. Car companies couldn't get enough chips to make cars. Electronics companies had to delay new products. This has made many countries realize that depending so heavily on Taiwan might be risky. The United States, Europe, and China are all trying to build their own semiconductor industries to reduce this dependence. There are also geopolitical concerns. Taiwan's relationship with China is complicated, and some people worry about what might happen if there were ever a conflict in the region. Taiwan's response to competition. Taiwan is not sitting still while other countries try to compete with them. They're working hard to maintain their advantage. First, they're continuing to invest in the most advanced technologies. While other countries are trying to catch up to where Taiwan is today, Taiwan is working on the technologies of tomorrow. Second, they're expanding globally. TSMC is building new factories in the United States and considering facilities in other countries. This helps them serve customers better and reduces some of the geopolitical risks. Third, they're moving into new areas. Taiwan is working on chips for artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, and other emerging technologies. They want to make sure they'll be leaders in the next generation of technology too. The human factor. Throughout the story, we've talked about technology, money, and government policies. But there's another factor that's just as important: the people. Taiwan's success in semiconductors is ultimately a story about human dedication and ingenuity. It's about engineers who work long hours to solve incredibly difficult problems. It's about factory workers who maintain the highest standards of quality. It's about business leaders who make smart decisions and take calculated risks. The semiconductor industry requires a special kind of patience and persistence. It can take years to develop a new technology, and one small mistake can set you back months. Taiwan's people have shown they have the temperament and skills needed for this challenging industry. Lessons for other countries. What can other countries learn from Taiwan's success? There are several important lessons. First, having a clear strategy is crucial. Taiwan didn't try to do everything. They focused on contract manufacturing and became the best in the world at it. Second, government support matters, but it needs to be smart support. Taiwan's government didn't just give money to companies. They invested in education, infrastructure, and research that helped the entire industry. Third, building an ecosystem is more powerful than building individual companies. Taiwan created an environment where many companies could thrive together. Fourth, continuous investment in technology and people is essential. Taiwan never stopped learning and improving. Finally, timing matters. Taiwan entered the semiconductor industry at the right time and made the right choices when opportunities appeared. Looking to the future. So, what's next for Taiwan's semiconductor industry? The future looks bright, but it won't be easy. The industry is facing new challenges. Making chips is becoming even more expensive and technically difficult. There's also growing competition from other countries that are investing heavily in their own semiconductor industries. But Taiwan has several advantages as it looks to the future. They have decades of experience and expertise that's hard to replicate. They have strong relationships with customers around the world. And they have a culture of innovation and continuous improvement. Taiwan is also working on new technologies that could define the next generation of computing. They're developing chips for artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and other emerging fields. The bigger picture. Taiwan's success in semiconductors is about more than just business. It's a story about how a small island nation used its advantages wisely and built something that benefits the entire world. The chips made in Taiwan power the devices we use every day. They enable the internet, smartphones, and computers that connect us all. They make possible the medical devices that save lives and the transportation systems that move us around. In a way, Taiwan's semiconductor industry is like a quiet foundation that supports much of modern life. Most people don't think about it, but it's there, working behind the scenes to make our technology possible. Conclusion. So, why is Taiwan so good at semiconductors? It's not just one thing. It's a combination of smart strategy, government support, excellent education, hard work, and good timing. Taiwan chose to focus on contract manufacturing when other countries were trying to build their own chip companies. They invested in education and infrastructure. They created an ecosystem where companies could work together. They attracted and developed world-class talent. And they never stopped innovating. The result is that today, this small island with about 23 million people produces most of the world's most advanced semiconductors. It's a remarkable achievement that shows what's possible when a society commits to excellence in a particular field. Taiwan's story is still being written. The semiconductor industry continues to evolve, and new challenges and opportunities are emerging. But the foundation that Taiwan has built over the past 50 years gives them a strong position to continue leading this crucial industry. The next time you use your smartphone or a laptop, take a moment to think about the tiny chips inside that make it all possible. There's a good chance those chips were made in Taiwan by people who have dedicated their lives to perfecting this incredible technology. That's our story for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. This podcast script is approximately 2,400 words and designed for B1, B2 level English learners.